right, and welcome back. We are here for some more real money talk. And today we're doing a client spotlight with Harley Green, and we are going to talk about real ways that real people are making money and helping you make more money along the way. Harley is the CEO and founder of Workergenix. This is a specialized VA and EA firm, and we're going to get into the nitty gritty on how he is helping other business owners and real estate investors amplify their business and get to the next level that they never even thought possible. Harley, thank you so much for being on here. I'm excited to have you and just welcome. I'm ready to get into it.
All right.
This is going to be a great episode.
Yeah, thank you, Erica. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, like I mentioned, before we get into the Workergenix and all the wonderful things that you guys are doing for your clients, let's talk a little bit about you. You have a lovely wife, Adrian. You got some kiddos. Tell us about you and your background. How did you get into this Workergenix business, this Workergenix space?
Yeah, so probably like many people listening, we started off with W-2 careers. We're professionals. I was a computer engineer. My wife was a school teacher and worked in finance before that. And we were just like looking for ways to invest well and have good returns without having to take on additional jobs. And
Mm.
so we started real estate investing back in 2013, really doubled down in 2016. And to help us scale and operate our rentals, we turned to using virtual assistants. And we kind of learned the hard way because it was just out of necessity. It got to the point where we had a small portfolio of homes that we were self-managing. We also had a homestead that was with animals and all that kind of stuff, plus our normal 40 to 50 hour a week W-2 jobs and children. There were just not enough hours in the day to have a balanced life and manage all these things. And so there were
You're
some
stressing
kind of
me out just
key
talking about it.
I know. Just looking back at my life back then, I'm just like, oh man, if only I could like go back and tell them the secrets of what we do now. But so we leveraged virtual assistants to help us. First, it was the bookkeeping. That was like a major thing. We were always behind. None of us really liked going and doing the bookkeeping, but it was an essential thing if you really wanted to take advantage of all the great tax benefits of real estate investing.
Yeah.
And so we brought on a virtual assistant bookkeeper, realized they could do a lot more than just bookkeeping, and started leveraging them more as like an executive assistant. So we could throw admin work at them, tenant screening, helping evaluate deals, running our CRM, creating newsletters, anything that is on the phone or computer. We realized if we were doing it and figuring it out, all it took was us, making a video recording about how we do it, handing it off to our EA, having them make a written procedure, and then we never had to do it again. So that was kind
Mm.
of the genesis of us using virtual assistants. And in 2022, got to the point with our investing that my job as a computer engineer, that W-2 job, was not necessary for us anymore. So I was able to step away from that. And then we were thinking, well, what can we do next? What's the next step? And it's, well, what do we know really well that we've had great success with? Well, it's finding amazing VAs and training them to be executive assistants. So that's the genesis of Workergenix. And now we help other people have similar success in their businesses and their investing with incredible executive assistants.
Oh, that's amazing. So you guys lived it, right? Like you were in the mud and, kind of, I like to call it doggy paddling through life, right? We're just trying to get by. So you guys experienced that and were able to, maneuver your way out of that by utilizing and leveraging these VAs. And now you're able to teach others how to do the same thing. So that's fantastic. And I know for you guys with Harley, you didn't mention this, but you stepped away from your W-2, obviously launched Workergenix and have built that. We're going to dive a little bit more into the details of that. But since then, you and Adrian and your kiddos have decided to travel the world and go see the world and live in a very nomadic way. So you get to experience all these wonderful things. Can you touch on that just a little bit? Because I'm living through you
Yeah.
vicariously.
Yeah, so one of the amazing things about leveraging the virtual assistants was my wife eventually started a real estate team she started out as a solo agent and then a real estate team, and she was able to grow quickly and successfully because of leveraging virtual assistants in all aspects of that business. And in late 2023, she was able to sell that team, which is very
Mm.
unusual in real estate. It's very difficult to sell real estate teams, and she was able to sell it successfully and with a high multiple because of leveraging those virtual assistants. And once that was sold, that was the last like kind of main business that really had us physically tied to one place. And so we had a talk and like we love traveling. We traveled a lot before that. But we're like, why don't we try a year of living abroad? And so we didn't like, burn all the bridges and sell everything. We just rented out our primary house, got a, long-term lease in there for a year, a long-term tenant. And so that was like, worst case, if we don't like it after a year, we can come back. And so we started out doing some travel domestically in the United States, going around the country. And then we flew to Colombia. We spent a month in Cartagena, and then we spent a couple months in Medellin. And since then, we've been in like 12 or 13 different countries all over the world. We've spent 6 months in Asia this last year, and we're now in the UK. And it's just been incredible. The opportunities both for like our children's education and our
Mhm.
personal experiences as a family have just been things that we could not even have anticipated because of having the freedom and businesses that operate virtually and without us having to be involved in like the day-to-day operations. So that's one thing we're super passionate about because we want other people to like achieve their dreams. It may not be digital nomading around the world, but it could be traveling just a little bit more, having a little bit longer vacations, and not being like the bottleneck in your business. And we help people with that.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it right on the head. It is the experiences and just, I mean, the intangible value that your kids are getting just from their education, their perspective, their experience to be able to interact with other people, other cultures, and just wow. And then obviously you guys as a family, that's there, it's invaluable on education and character for them to be able to just have that. So again, like I said, I'm living by we travel a lot. We travel a lot, but you guys took it to a whole nother level. And like you said, you did that through leveraging these virtual assistants and putting your business on the path to be able to actually run like a business. And that's
Right.
one of the books I'm reading right now. I mentioned to you earlier, I'm a huge book person. I'm reading Buy Back Your Time.
Yeah.
And we're going to come back to that, I'm sure. But one of the things that he mentioned is a lot of people who own businesses think that think that they're a business owner, but they're not. They're just somebody who they're an employee who happens to have equity in the business, right? Because they're
Yeah.
so busy in their business, they have to be there for it to operate. They have to be there for it to run. That is really you
Right.
just have a job and you happen to employ yourself kind of thing. So
Exactly.
let's transition into the workergenic space. Um, can you give us like a summary, a high level overview of what you guys do, the value that you bring? And I know a lot of people out there are familiar with virtual assistants and executive assistants, but what is it that you guys saw in the marketplace that you could add value, and how have you built that? And then, of course, we'll get into some more detail from there.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing we offer is highly leveraging technology. My background as a computer engineer, software architect for 15 years. So we bring a lot of technology to the table that we give to our clients to help with their operations as well as their executive assistants that work through
Mhm.
us to support them. And then we've personally experienced the success of using virtual assistants for many years in a variety of different businesses personally. And so we have that actual real world experience that we can speak to and are passionate about helping other people achieve similar success. And so one of the things that we see a lot is people come to us and they're like so overwhelmed. They realize they need help, or maybe they're high performers in their team need help as well. And they just don't even know where to begin. They're like doing all
Mhm.
of these things like, well, I think I need someone who can like manage my email inbox because people kind of throw that around all the time. And but they're like, I don't even know how to do that. And so we can come in and we just go alongside them and help them. And we make it really easy to get started. Some of the tips I'm happy to share with the audience. I'm really big on having written procedures and then also very clear job descriptions and like progressive evaluation and responsibility growth for your executive assistant. And it also helps you as a leader not be overwhelmed with how you're going to start handing things off. You don't have to say, okay, we're going to go from 0 to 100 on day one of just like letting go, because that's called dumping. That's not delegating, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you're going to result with failure doing that. And so we want to actually delegate smart and progressively so that everybody is successful. And so having a clear job description about what you want them to do. And an easy way to get started with this is just do like a little time audit. There's so many guides on how to do this. I like to just have a Google Keep and I just keep track of things that I don't like doing. If I find myself doing something, I'm like, I don't like doing this. I'm just going to put it in that Google Keep. And then over time, I've got a big list of things, and I'm ready to like figure out how I can delegate that. So then throw that into AI, throw it into like ChatGPT or something and say, hey, here's all the things that I don't like. Make a job description based on these things and help me like figure out what that person's going to look like. And then from there, you can also take that job description and create a 30, 60, 90-day onboarding plan. So this is really
Oh.
critical where so many people just like they can make the job description, but then they're like, well, I don't even know how to what do I do once that person starts? So we make it really easy with Workergenix. We have a 3 to 4 week onboarding period where you get some homework to help you get started. We provide systems and technology with like a task management portal where you can start loading things up for your assistant so they hit the ground running when they are ready to start working for you. We give a lot of technology like Canva, ChatGPT Pro accounts, video editing tools, graphic editing tools, all that kind of stuff that all the VAs out there use. We just provide that so you're ready to go. You don't have to worry about setting those things up. You just have to worry about making sure you have that list and getting it ready to go and then making this 30, 60, 90. So you're going to just, again, go back to AI, plug it in the ChatGPT, take that job description and say, hey, make a 30, 60, 90-day onboarding plan for me for my new executive assistant. It's going to then have it break things out into categories of responsibility. So that way it's really clear, like, hey, here's CRM management, or here's bookkeeping, or here's social media marketing, or here's like deal analysis, or calling, or outreach, whatever those things are in your business that you're doing that you want to hand off. And then start out, here's the goal for what they're taking over in the first 30 days.
Mm.
Here's the goal for what they're taking over on that same subject line at day 60 and then again at day 90. So within 90 days, you're going to have an executive assistant who's basically taken virtually everything off your plate that you don't like doing. It's that simple. It's really not that overwhelming if you have that clear, logical, and progressive approach.
You know what? And that's so true because it's overwhelming when you think about everything, right? When you think about, oh my gosh, I've got my email, I've got my calendar, I've got these appointments, I've got the, social media. It's like drinking from a fire hydrant. And you're like, I can't do all of this and I don't even know where to start. I think you nailed it right on the head. And I'm a list person and I'm a process person. If I can write down and sometimes writing it down makes me realize, oh, it's really not that bad. It's just kind of all jumbled up in my head and it looks bad. But and I'm a huge AI, ChatGPT, big fan of that. But if you can map out that plan and see visually, right, what that list is, one, that makes it easier for you to be more targeted on who do you need, what do you need them to do, and obviously create that 30, 60, 90-day plan. But that also makes it easier for your VA to be able to actually step into that role. And I think I want to come back to that because you have VAs that are already trained in the areas that most people are needing assistance. And I think some of the feedback that I've heard from others with, different VAs that they've hired try to do like this little part-time here, that part-time there. They're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right?
Yeah.
But they're going out and hiring people that it's like, oh my gosh, it was more work just to have this VA. It was more work than it was, what they were relieving. Sometimes that's a time thing, but can you kind of speak to the training and the specialization that you've brought to your team that allows other people to hire through you guys, knowing that there's going to be that value and that trained person coming on board. There's still going to be a hiring and an onboarding process, right? There's always a
Yeah.
learning curve, but the fundamentals are there. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so we've been doing this for so many years now that we actually put together a professional course. We call it our Professional Virtual Executive Assistant Training Course. And all of our executive assistants come through this course. They get fully certified on it. And it gives them a soft skills development for what US business owners need. And there's no other course like it. There's all these like free VA courses out there and like how to do marketing or use Canva. Most people don't care about that. You can have AI tell you exactly what you need to do in like 30 seconds for those types of things. But what AI cannot tell you to do is how to be a thought partner with your boss or your client,
Mhm.
or how to like anticipate needs. And so we train them on all these things that executives really need their executive assistant to handle, and more of the thought process and communication styles and things like that. And so they're really a cut above. We only hire people that have college degrees, excellent written and spoken English skills, great high-speed internet with redundant backups, and the computer equipment needed to support our clients. And I'll share a quick story where I met a lady who was a leading real estate agent. She came to us originally and was asking if she could have like a part-time assistant because she didn't think she had 40 hours of work. Of course, after like hearing all the stuff that she does on a daily basis, I'm like, you probably have about four VAs full-time working for you and still have stuff to do. But people don't often think about that because they've got their blinders on of like, well, I'm doing it this way, it takes me this long. So like if I just carve that off, that's only 20 hours. But they don't realize like there's all these other things that they want to get to, but they don't have the time to get to. And
Hmm.
so when they have that really high quality
Guilty.
EA, then they can start doing those things that they've been put on the back burner for so long. Anyhow, she was like, "Well, I want to do part-time." Well, we don't do part-time. We only do full-time because number one, we want clients who are really in aggressive growth mode and have that growth mindset. And
Yeah.
if you don't have that growth mindset, you're not going to do well. Even if you have part-time, you're not going to leverage it and you're going to wash out. Two, the people who we hire, they need full-time work. And the fact of the matter is we've tried part-time in the past. We did it personally, and that's where all the problems started because like you mentioned earlier, they've got one foot out the door. People need full-time work to just support themselves and their families.
Yeah.
This part-time thing is kind of like that people will take it if it's the only thing available. So you get lower quality candidates. You also get people who are not fully committed and are much more likely to just bail on you at the last minute. And this poor woman I spoke to, she's like, okay, let me go try to do it on my own. She went and interviewed like dozens of people. She finally hired someone and it was part-time, of course, and they ghosted her after a week. So she'd like just done all this like onboarding and then she did it again. And the same kind of thing. But it was a month later. And I was like,
Hmm.
that is what our service was built to avoid. Because in addition to doing amazing recruiting and screening, we use all kinds of AI tools for analyzing candidates. We've got a huge database of candidates now. When we hire someone, it's specifically for each client. We don't have people sitting around like waiting to get placed with a client.
Oh,
And part
okay.
of that is we hire a cohort of applicants that we think look promising on paper and through the initial rounds of interviews. And we put them through very rigorous onboarding tasks and evaluations that really make sure they're highly detail oriented. They do what they say they're going to do. They show up on time and they're fast at it. If they don't meet those requirements, they don't hit our thresholds, they get washed out. And even if that means the whole cohort goes out and we have to go to our client and be like, hey, you know what? We need another week. I think our clients appreciate that because they're going to get the best possible match that they know is going to stick with them. And that results in us having the lowest turnover rates in the industry, in addition to how we support them. And that's another thing a lot of people forget about when they're hiring a VA. They think they can go out and get like a part-time, or maybe they just get one full-time VA. That often like leads to problems. And one of the funny
Hmm.
things was when we started Workergenix, my wife still had a real estate team and she had already had her direct hire VAs, a small team of them there. And she actually had more trouble with like turnover on that side, even though we were kind of doing the same best practices with managing and communication than we had with Workergenix, because with Workergenix, we have a whole administrative like HR care team set up that is local to where our employees are in the Philippines that helps them with things that they typically and culturally do not bring up to their US based clients that cause them to quit. Things that like sound ridiculous to US business owners, like, well, if you had just told me, we could have figured it out. Like, you need a
Yeah.
day off to like take your grandpa to the hospital, just ask. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
But they won't do it. They will instead just ghost you. Instead, when we have our support frameworks in place, and it costs a lot more overhead, so it's not worth doing if you just have one or two VAs, but then you have problems. They come to them and come to our admin team and say, hey, I'm like stressed out because like my grandpa's got cancer. I got to take him to the hospital Friday. Can I do that? Yes, just put your leave request in and let your client know you'll get approved. Or like you need a pay advance because you've got like a car that's broken down. Sure, no problem. We have a form for that. Just fill it out. You get your pay advance and that problem goes away. And so it's a lot of stuff that just has been solved by having this framework of a full service like white glove agency that you just cannot do on your own.
Yeah. You don't have I mean, like you said, if you have one person and you might have one or two VAs, even if they're full time, you guys are bringing in, like, I like to call it the Costco model. You have it in bulk. So you're able to, one, you're able to provide those types of HR and services, not just for, and I love that, it's not just for the business owners, but also for the VAs, right? Like
Yeah.
they need that. They, have their own lives and services and things that they may not feel comfortable bringing up. But you're exactly right. And I can't tell you how many people I have talked to and interacted with that, like I said, they haven't had the best experience with hiring virtual assistants because the training or they just ghost you or whatever. So you guys going through that rigorous upfront process is incredibly valuable. And I found it interesting that you said something, and it was not just like this massive pool of people and you just randomly go pick one. It's that you're specifically hiring people for your client. So you're finding out who your client is, what it is that they do, what it is that they need, and then you're selecting through a very particular process who is it that's going to fit that particular job. I mean,
Exactly. Most people are not, unless like your job is staffing, you're probably not interviewing and hiring expert, and much less so with overseas talent and
yeah.
understanding the nuances of culture, infrastructure, and things like that that people just have no clue about, which is fine. You got to focus on what you're good at, whether that's investing, running your business, or just taking care of your family. We are the experts on doing that, and that's why we
Mhm.
have this service. So we just make it so easy and make it so that our clients can really stay focused on, all right, let's get ready. Let's make that 30, 60, 90 plan. Let's start recording the videos of doing the tasks that we don't want to do anymore so that when that assistant is ready and hitting the ground running, they can just go and have that weekly check-in meeting. They have all the tasks set up with deadlines, priorities, categories. So it's so easy for everyone involved, both the EA and the client.
I love that. I love that. So for you guys, I want to come back to some of the mechanics of this. The biggest hurdle, I think we kind of touched on that a little bit. Most people there's a resistance there. Some people are like all in. Like if you know Neil Bawa, I know that he has outsourced everything in his life. He even had this idea of he's outsourced his personal stuff where he's like he
Mhm.
has his VA schedule date nights, schedule his vacations. I mean, role model there. But from the lens of from your business, can you kind of, let's come back to the biggest hurdle and some of the biggest problems that people have. I think it's fair to kind of bring that up. How are you guys helping people through their resistance to get into the VA space, either for the first time or after
Yeah.
being burned?
Right. So one thing that I'm happy to share with everybody is we have a guide called Delegate or Die. And it's got over 100 different responsibilities and tasks that can be easily handed off to our executive assistants. And so if people want to go to workergenix.com/infinityis. They can sign up to get that guide. And then it's really easy. You can just go through and it's a checklist. You can check the things that like you need help with in your business or you're currently doing. So that is a huge first step. And then from there, after you download that, you'll see opportunity to get access to a free master class that we have on how to start with an executive assistant. It just goes over the whole process of, if you want to go and do it on your own, you can do it on your own. It shows how we do the interviewing, screening, talking about pricing, and then onboarding and getting those tasks ready. So we have tons of guides and resources like that. Also for our clients, like I said, when they onboard, they're going to get access to a dashboard showing them the progress, getting some little emails to give them some homework to help get ready. And we provide a task management portal built on Monday.com to have all those things there. And so the technology and systems are in place to just make it seamless for them to get started and have success. And then our team is there along the way. And I personally am there too, doing our initial consult calls. So we really dive in that call to what's going on in your life, whether it's, the personal, the business, the investing. We've done it all. And so I can just help you and share, here's how we do it. And here's what you need. And maybe you need two, maybe you need one. I'm going to guide you through that process of, that going from zero to one to maybe two to maybe three. Many of our clients, they start out with like kind of a high level EA. They get
Hmm.
them moved up into like a role of like a director of operations. And then they can bring on other more specialized people for like doing just their marketing or just their finance and bookkeeping, invoicing in their business, or just their like outreach, cold calling, sales, things like that. And it's kind of managed by that original EA. And that's really the ideal spot when you are at that point in your business. That's when you can have with the lifestyle where you're traveling full time and you actually have a business then where you can step back and trust
Yeah.
that things are being operated without you being the bottleneck in it.
Yeah, you at that point, you're the business owner, not the business manager. Oh my gosh. Oh. So can you I know like you mentioned a majority and who you're hiring is through the Philippines. Some of the people, again, just kind of going through what I've experienced in the past and the conversations we've had, a lot of times the work that we're needing VAs to do can be done periodically. Obviously, there's a time zone difference there. For people that might need, and this might be a part of the hiring process, for people that might need real-time interaction or during the day work, do you guys, I'm assuming that you guys have the ability to kind of filter that into your hiring process so they're able to be there during the day?
Yeah, so we actually don't offer like asynchronous or off-hour support. All of our executive assistants are like right hand of our clients. So they
Oh,
are
wow.
working the same hours that our clients work, whether it's US West Coast, East Coast, or if you travel. Your executive assistant's time can shift with your travel schedule. So we had someone that was working in the East Coast. Maybe they go to the West Coast for a week for a conference. They can have their executive assistant shift their hours. Maybe they go overseas and they're in another country for a while, like we do. We just have our direct executive assistants shift their schedules so they are online and available to be communicated with, have meetings when we're working as well. So that is not a problem at all. Think of it this way. If you were in a position where you were an employee and you got offered your dream job with a salary that you just like was unimaginable to you and you could really level up your lifestyle and you could work from home or you could travel and still do your job, you would work the night shift. And it actually
Yeah.
works out better for people that we hire because a lot of them have children. And so their kids are actually at school during the day when they're sleeping. And so then the kids are home. They take, they do the evening or morning routine and then they get on shift with our client. The kids are either at school or they're sleeping. And so there's no distractions for them that way. And it's actually becomes an ideal situation because they become the breadwinner for their family. They're able to level up their lifestyle. We share like pictures all the time of like our employees buying their first car. And that's
Oh, I
one thing
love
that's
that.
just so cool to see because in the Philippines, the like median price of a car is like over $15,000. Well, the median salary there is only about $4,000 a year. And so put it in terms of like the US, that'd be like, if the average car cost was like $170,000, that'd be a big celebration for someone to be able to buy that. And so our employees are able to do that because we're giving them a US salary while still being a huge discount for our US based clients on what it would cost to have a similarly skilled and qualified executive assistant in-house.
I love that. You guys are bridging the gap between those two different worlds. And again, that solves one of the big problems is when you are hiring outside of the US and there's that disconnect on the time zone. So you guys have addressed that, right? Check, check, check. I love it. So who are your target clients? If you were to say, hey, this person right here in, meeting these parameters, they have already seen success. We know exactly how to plug right in. Who is, if you're listening, hear out these characteristics and Harley's going to start waving the green flag for you. So who is this person?
Absolutely. So full-time investors who've got a portfolio of like at least 10 doors where, they are self-managing it, that's an easy starting point. You get someone in there who's an EA who can handle your bookkeeping, tenant screening, marketing your listings, and just being that personal assistant that we talked about too. They can do the things like scheduling the date night, ordering your groceries online, helping you be anytime you have to like change utilities over, things like that, that EA is handling for you. So that's a really good one. And then the other side is professional service businesses where they've got a couple of employees already, maybe it's some partners, and they're just all maxed out. And maybe the budget isn't there to bring on another local employee, but you can now leverage your existing team by giving them executive assistants, or maybe you have an executive assistant that a couple people share. That's really common. We've got like husband-wife duos that will share an executive assistant. One's like a real estate agent, one's a contractor, and they share that EA to help with all the bookkeeping, CRM management, marketing, things like that. And so now you can basically increase the value of your existing team, whether it's your partner or employees, because they're no longer doing low leverage tasks. You've delegated that to the executive assistant at a fraction of the cost of hiring someone totally new locally. And now that value and that salary that you're giving your local employee is going even further. Not to mention that they're also going to be happier because if they're not having to do those low level kind of tasks that they probably don't like doing, they're going to have higher job satisfaction. They're going to stick around with you longer and they're probably going to do higher quality work.
Mm, hmm I think that, yeah, and it's that time audit, but also that energy audit, right? Like when you're going through the day and if you think, oh, I just finished this task, am I more energized or am I completely drained and just need to decompress because I hated what I was doing in that time period, right? Are you guys in the time audit and working with business owners and you're going on that upfront conversation? Are y'all a part of the time audit and helping kind of identify areas of the business that you guys could step in and fulfill?
So we are happy to review it. We don't necessarily have like a template that they do. We basically the information I shared here in the call is exactly what I share in those discovery calls. Is like here's what you do. You use Google Keep. You write down what you're doing. use ChatGPT to make that job description in 30, 60, 90. And you can do that while we're doing that onboarding. That usually works best is that,
Mhm.
because it takes 3 to 4 weeks for us to do all the screening and training and that evaluation process to make sure we get the very best person for you. And that helps people like really have a nice, smooth on ramp. It's not like, oh my goodness, someone's going to start tomorrow. You've got 3 weeks to get this figured out. And our client care team, plus myself, are available to answer questions along the way. So people might say, hey, can you take a look at my 30, 60, 90 plan? Does this make sense? Or
Mm.
a lot of times people come to us and like, I don't know if like one person can do this all. Do I need two people? Or I'd really like someone who can update and maintain my website and also is like an amazing bookkeeper and is going to clean up my QuickBooks for me. And we're going to step in and say like, well, hold on a second. We wouldn't hire a US employee that is like a QuickBooks expert and also a website developer, right?
Yeah.
It's like that doesn't
Those
necessarily
aren't the
make sense.
same
Now
people.
there's not the same people, and you don't want that person doing both of those. There's some minor exceptions though, and that's where our personal expertise of like, hey, we actually are able to find executive assistants that have some skill combinations that you don't typically find in US employees because the Philippines is a hotbed for virtual assistants. They understand and know what US businesses need, and so the
Yeah.
people there specialize and train in these areas that colleges in the US are not training them on, or technical programs are not training people on because they just are. It would be way too cost prohibitive, so like it's just not done. So examples would be like, yes, we can get someone who can do light social media management and light bookkeeping, and that may be sufficient for a business that if they already have their books set up, they got their CPA kind of followed a template for them, and they just need someone doing the daily transactions categorizing. That's super common with like especially investors with short-term rentals. You've got massive amounts of transactions coming in all the time, and it's hard to keep up with those. The EA can handle keeping up with them, managing where all those receipts are coming from, making sure they're attached, reaching out to your service providers, paying invoices, things like that.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, and I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. The Philippines, I mean, obviously that's a huge hotbed for for VA work. That's where a majority of people are going. So, like you said, there are colleges and their education system is kind of geared towards preparing them for that and giving them some of the fundamental skills and background training that American colleges just aren't doing, at least initially,
Exactly.
right? Um, let's come back to you mentioned the process takes about 3 to 4 weeks. So for people who are listening and they say, hey, this is pretty intriguing. This might be something that I need to incorporate into my business. What does that process look like? What is it hey, how do I reach out to Harley? What does that interview process look like? And kind of walk us through what they can expect in, interviewing with and making sure, hey, is this a good fit? Into, all right, we're ready to bring our VAEA on board.
Absolutely. So I'd say the first step is go to that website I mentioned, workergenix.com/infinityis. Get that guide, do the checklist so you really have a good audit understanding of all the things that you're ready to hand off. From there, you can schedule a discovery call. There's links all over the main website as well as in that flow of downloading the guide. You book an appointment with me, we'll have a call virtually just like this. And it's really for me to understand your business at that point to make sure like we really understand all the things you have going on, do some brainstorming, asking, targeted questions because a lot of people just don't know what the EA can do. And so I'll just
Mm,
ask, like, do you do this? Do you do this? And we can come up with what a potential job might description might look like together at that time, answer any kind of questions they have about scheduling. You've already asked most of the common questions in this. So if people have seen this, they're basically ready to go. From there, that's just like a 30, 45-minute call. The next step is paying the deposit. So the deposit is for your first month of service. Anyone who comes through and uses that link, they're going to get a 25% discount on their first month of service, and
hey.
it makes it just that much easier to get started. Our prices start at 19.79 a month and end at 19.79 a month. So we keep it really simple. We just have a flat rate. It's less than $2,000 a month to have a full-time college-educated executive assistant that's 100% dedicated in your business. So once you've paid that deposit, that gives us the green light to start onboarding and the talent search. So our talent search team goes and they're going to make their own job description. They do all kinds of recruiting and referral sources that we have set up that are proprietary. They're going to find all these great candidates for us. Meanwhile, you're going to get onboarded. You're going to get an email series. You're going to get invites to make your Monday.com account where you can get access to your task portal. Now that's optional. Some people come to us like, well, I already use Asana or I already use another system. No problem. You can add your executive assistant into those accounts and frameworks just how you would any other employee. They are your dedicated executive assistant. We just provide these things as a compliment because a lot of people don't have them.
Yeah.
So after that 3 to 4 weeks, you're going to get updates every week from our client care team, making sure they fully understand exactly what your needs are. If anything changes along the line, you think of something else, they can adjust it. Obviously, if you like change things too dramatically, we might have to reset the clock on doing the interviews, but that is no problem at all. We want to make sure that we get the right person for our client. At the end, when they've been fully vetted, you'll just schedule another call with our client care team. They're going to have that opportunity to introduce you to your new executive assistant. You'll set the work schedule and just kind of get things set up for your first initial work meeting with them. And then once they're on that work schedule with you, that's when that deposit that you paid starts counting. So like you don't actually have to pay anything else until the second full month of service.
Okay.
We have no startup fees. We have no long-term contract. And so our interests are fully aligned with our clients. We do well when we provide the very best world-class executive assistants for our clients, and they do well.
Love that. Well, and that I think that just makes sense on the upfront to be able to get in. Well, one, obviously your range of 1979 to 1979 keeps it clean, right? No question there. But that helps people as they go through the process know who they're going to get, what value they're going to get. And again, I can't emphasize enough. I didn't realize this. Obviously, you and I have spoken a few times. I didn't realize that you guys were out hiring specifically for jobs. It's not just a pool of randos, right? Like I think about like the
Yeah,
claw clip from or the claw game from Toy Story where they go in and just pick a random toy. No, you guys are hand selecting, interviewing, and hiring VAs and EAs specifically for the person, the job, the industry, and that they have the
that's exactly
skills
right.
to be able to go out and do that. And you mentioned it earlier. You can go out and do this yourself, right? There's nothing that says you can't. One, what's the time value of your money to
Yeah.
go through that process? And two, what do you have and what experience and parameters do you have in place to make sure that the time you're spending on that is going to end up being successful, right? So it's so much better to be able to just outsource that. And you mentioned too, you can share VAs. Now, I've seen that to where, you don't want to have a split between like 4 or 5 people. Like obviously
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. One person, maybe two, right? Two
Yeah.
people sharing um makes sense, but being able to do that is so incredibly valuable, especially if you're in the same industry and you've got two people that are real estate investors or two people that are in, the same professional service. I mean, that's just incredibly valuable. So, um, awesome. And thank you for sharing the process and kind of giving that guideline. We're gonna have that website across the bottom. I'll also put the link in the email and everywhere else. So it'll be easy just to get there. Make sure you get the delegate or die guide. This is your way.
Yeah.
That's kind of like your step one prerequisite to make sure that you're going into this process with a mindset and with an idea of what you can delegate. And I love your phrase that you said earlier. That's not delegating, that's dumping. We don't want to dump it on people. We want to delegate it. So I
Yeah.
absolutely love that. So let's kind of start to wind back to a little bit more on the Harley Green side. Um, what would you say? Obviously, the last couple of years has been very interesting for people in the real estate space. You guys have made some big transitions in life over the last probably 5 years. What do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned and or something that you're doing completely different now than you did years ago?
There are so many. Picking just one is difficult. I will say the thing that I think has been helping the most is leveraging AI with those job descriptions in the 30, 60, 90 for hiring. At first, we were just kind of like, hey, we need a bookkeeper. So, hey, yeah, if they've got QuickBooks certification, that's good. And then it was just like kind of a cluster of getting them onboarded. So, being super clear with your job description in that 30, 60, 90, and then having metrics as you're going along and meeting regularly. So that's another thing where the biggest indicators of someone who's going to wash out with having executive assistant are not having weekly check-in meetings. People
Mm-hmm.
who treat it like a black box where they think they can just like send little text messages every now and then and they're going to get a marvelous output. They fail because that's not how people work.
Yeah.
And so having regular video face-to-face meetings, it doesn't have to be long, it can be 15, 30 minutes. Follow like the EOS structure for your meetings. It's super helpful too. And you're going to have so much more success. It's basically like guaranteed. If you can meet regularly with your executive assistant, there's very little that can come up that's going to derail things for you. So I think those would be the main takeaways for being successful.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'll tell you, my team and I, we all work virtually. We're here locally, but we all work virtually. And I'll tell you, we instituted we instituted a Monday morning meeting, right? Our triple M. And it's not long, right? I mean, sometimes
Yep.
it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes tops,
Yep.
but it is a chance to be like, all right, where are we? We're, acknowledging what happened last week. Where are we this week? What needs to be done? We really kind of map out our game plan, identify anything that's missing, and then that way the rest of the week we've delegated the tasks of what needs to be done with who, and boom, we're just set for that. And it's been an absolute game changer for everyone across the board. So I would parrot that for sure. Ditto. So other obviously you've got a lot going on in the Workergenix space. What do you have in the pipeline that you're working on right now that you're excited about? Anything in the future that you feel like you just really amped up about?
Absolutely. So we've been longtime real estate investors, and we've kind of evolved from that now, especially with our traveling lifestyle, to being private money lenders. And so we had been doing that kind of on the side with my retirement funds after I retired from being a computer engineer. And it was really successful. It's great to see these winning situations where we're able to help real estate investors come in quickly with the funds they need to buy and rehab properties
Mm.
without all the headaches because we're direct lenders. There's no like separate people doing underwriting. If we say yes, we fund it. And it got to the point where we had more demand from borrowers than we had capital available. And so one of the things we're doing now is opening it up to other people who want to be private lenders and have their investments grow without all the ups and downs of the stock market. And they're secured as first position liens against real houses in appreciating markets and not have to worry about all the headaches and overhead of like figuring out how to become a private lender. We help them do that and get amazing above average returns. So if that's something people want to talk about, you can just reach out to me again through the Workergenix website, or we have another website for this called investaway.co. And it's really focused on helping people have truly passive investments and that are tired of that rocking and rolling of the stock market, whether it's tariffs or things like that. They can just become effectively real estate investors, but without having to deal with like tenants and toilets and things like that.
Yeah. And I will say both Harley and Adrian are extremely well versed and utilize infinite banking. So for those of you that are infinite banking and I've had clients ask about, the hard money lending, obviously that's a great way to deploy your IBC capital. So if that's something that you're interested in, Harley and Adrian are both very well versed in that. It can help you go through the process of, hey, what do we, and of course, right, like I can answer questions too for my clients, but if you're wondering like how to do that in the private lending space, Harley, Adrian, they've got that systematized, and I'm sure you guys have an SOP for that as well. So,
Got the VAs working on that. Yep.
oh, love it. I love it. Are there
Perfect.
any particular, other than the Delegate or Die guide, are there any books or podcasts, anything that you're just like, oh my gosh, you've got to read this. This is a game changer.
Yeah, so lately I've been a big fan of Joe Dispenza's work, and he's really big on mindset, meditation, and just really understanding your subconscious. And I
Mm.
found that personally to help a lot, both with like leadership, how I approach my businesses, and interacting with family. It just gives me so much more peace, gives me like more confidence and control of my future. And I really highly recommend his book, especially like Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself has been really good. They're incredible reads. Just you can do audiobook or get the physical paperback. Really great stories in there and success stories and clear just guidance on how you can easily improve yourself without a lot of crazy work. One that was really helpful was the book Traction. That is kind of talking about extending the EOS system and really being big on KPIs, making sure you have those regular team meetings and how you delegate, how you manage your team to make sure everyone's rowing in the same direction. And so, implementing those strategies in our businesses has been a big game changer in not only just like our performance and success, but also just like the happiness and clarity of our team members. So, one of the things we do is kind of evaluate with like forms that each week the employees fill out of like, how happy they are. And we're just solid nines or tens all the time now because everyone's super clear on what their responsibilities are. There's no confusion. There's not he said, she said, or like what they're supposed to be doing on a given week. They know exactly what they're supposed to do every hour of the day, every day of the week.
Oh yeah. And I say this all the time. Clarity provides confidence, right? And that's just when you're clear on what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, and the why, then
Yeah.
you can do that and you can move forward with confidence. And that's, I mean, who's not going to be happy with that kind of outline? Awesome. So Harley, again, thank you so much. This has been incredibly helpful, very insightful. So, real estate investors, business owners, if you are doggy paddling through life right now, just trying to keep your head above water, you know that you need to be offloading or delegating something to someone, but you don't know where to start and you don't know, who to talk to. This is your chance. This is your green flag here. Again, I'm going to have the website, the Workergenix website that you can go to. You can download the Delegate or Die guide. Go ahead and start there. And Harley also mentioned there's a free it's a webinar class that you guys,
Yeah, masterclass.
a
Yeah.
master class that you can take. You can get those prerequisites done. You can, watch that when you're laying on the couch in the evening, something like that. Get that process started so you can move into delegating and moving into business ownership. Quit getting in your own way, quit being the bottleneck in your business, and start leveling up and doing the things that you need to do for your business, for your employees, and for your clients so that you guys can all get to the next level and grow. So, Harley, again, thank you so much for coming on.
And I'm available if people just want to have that discovery call. They don't want to like go through the work of doing the guide, although I highly recommend it. Happy to just have that quick conversation and talk about what people's needs are and what the next steps might be. I'm really passionate about helping people level things up, and so it's not a problem at all. Looking forward to speaking with the audience. And again, thank you, Erica, for having me on your show.
Absolutely. I love it. Awesome. So, again, this has been Real Money Talk, where we get in with real people making real money and helping you make real money along the way. Thanks for joining in. We'll see you next time. At Infinity Investment Strategies, we teach investors and business owners how to become the bank. In using the infinite banking strategy, you can lower your taxes, increase the control you have over your own money, lower your risk against multiple wealth eroding factors by adding additional layers of asset protection, and increase your leverage with guaranteed growth and the opportunity for dual rates of return. With authorized infinite banking practitioners with experience in business and investments, we are here to help enhance your portfolio.